Amen, amen. It's an awesome song. All right, guys. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming for a continuation of our series on finances and biblical finances, specifically dealing with the book of Proverbs. So last week or last Sunday, let me pull up this PowerPoint. All right, so last week we talked about wisdom, proverbs, and finances, starting with the whole. Actually, who was on last Sunday that wants to kind of just give like a short review on kind of what were the main key points that we talked about on Sunday? So I don't have to.
So one of the key points I think was our perspective around finances and really knowing who's the source of all your finances and all your financial blessings.
Amen. Yep, exactly. It was about the perspective of knowing that the concept of finances is really an issue of the heart, and the perspective that your blessings are really your steward of what you have. God has given you these blessings, and you're supposed to be a good steward of it. And that we talked about how the biggest basically competitor with God for our hearts are our finances, our possessions. And so that's why it's so very important, and why it's discussed so much in the Bible about the concept of finances and our possessions and how we handle these things. So it's an issue of the heart is really what the key issue is that it's an issue of the heart. Then we went on and we talked about the 5 pillars of biblical wealth. We got to pillar number 3, which is debt management. First pillar is living below your means. Second pillar is saving. And we discussed about work and the importance of work within that, because obviously if you don't work, you can't produce, you can't save. And then we talked about debt management. So one of the things that we talked about with saving was about living like an ant, obviously. And debt management is actually where we finished off at, and we kind of rushed debt. But I feel like we kind of covered most of it. We just went through it quickly. Jamie, I see that you're on. I know you did the Financial Peace University with us. So do you have anything you want to add in regards to like kind of like what you think biblical perspective of debt?
Other than, like you already said, you got to know who the source is of your finances and your blessings.
Mm-hmm.
So you you're only going to be blessed. You're fearful of tithing and offering because you can feel concerned that you're limited. But overall, I mean, it was his to begin with. He's blessed you with this. And if you honor, you will receive more blessings and be honored with more.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. And then also one of the biggest concepts that we talked about in relation to that was in Proverbs 22:7, which it says, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. I know this was a concept that kind of sparked a lot of discussion on Sunday, because we talked about different types of debt and good debt versus bad debt. And ultimately, though, the Bible talks about debt being a bad thing. We discussed how in the Old Testament, it was seen as a negative thing to have to borrow from someone else, because you borrowed, obviously, because you didn't have it. And now you had to be basically a slave to that person until you fulfilled your debt. It wasn't like a physical slave until you couldn't fulfill your debt. Then you had to go into bond slavery and things like that. Or you basically sell yourself in the sense of bond slavery. But ultimately, we discussed and identified that there's good debt versus bad debt. Bad debt obviously is, the common things that we think of, and even beyond that, but the common things of like credit card debt, loans, things like that. And good debt is what we kind of viewed as things such as educational loans and housing loans and things like that, things that produce some type of value. But we still kind of came to the conclusion, at least I felt biblically, we came to the conclusion that all debt is bad debt. Now, how you manage the debt is what really determines if you're a slave to the lender or not. Because the concept of good debt, or biblically, the concept of good debt is basically like if we're managing debt in the sense that we're getting benefits of a credit card, for example, and utilizing the credit card, but we have the money to obviously pay it off quickly, then you're just using it to obtain points or obtain the maximum benefit, then that's not the same thing as being in debt, because you can easily pay that off. That's not being in debt. You're just being wise with how you utilize your money. But bad debt is obviously when you're being foolish and spend, when you don't have the funds to pay it back, or it's going to be a struggle for you to pay it back, or you're paying back the minimum balances and now accruing more debt. And we went through quickly went through an example of average credit card debt. If you have like a monthly, you took out a loan of $10,000 and you paid back the minimum balance until you paid off the debt, and with paying off the minimum balances, you on average you'll accrue an interest of about 18%. So if you increase that throughout the time period, the average time period it will take for you to pay off the minimum balance, and only paying the minimum balance to pay off your debt, you'd end up with that $10,000 debt that you had, you'd end up paying $19,800. So that's not good. Let's see. Then we reviewed some get out of debt steps, and the first step to getting out of debt was to pray, because God wants to help you. He wants to give you the wisdom to get out of debt. So pray about it and ask for that wisdom and ask for courage to actually face it. Next was stop incurring your new debt, because how can you pay off your debt if you keep adding more debt on top of that debt? You're just digging yourself in a bigger and bigger hole. The third would be to establish an emergency fund. And by establishing an emergency fund, you protect yourself. It's a form of protection, because most of the time when you incur debt, it's because you're faced with some unexpected circumstance that happens that you didn't have the funds to pay for, which caused you to have to go into debt. So establishing an emergency fund can give you some type of cushion, so you don't have to, you can at least maybe reduce the impact of that debt. And the fourth would be work on a debt repayment plan. And we talked about the snowball plan. And I feel like snowball plan, I hear that in like everything. So that obviously must work, because I hear it in the Financial Peace Bible study we did, in the Balance Bible study we did. I hear it on podcast. I hear it I see it on a number of different things. So obviously must work to do the snowballing.
Ray, I had a question for you about that last slide.
Which one?
The last slide, the third point.
Yeah.
So establish an emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen stats recently that close to 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Just a question for thought here. Why do you think, I mean, obviously if they're living paycheck to paycheck, they don't have an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many Americans are in that position?
Of living paycheck to paycheck?
Yeah. I mean, that's just a question out there for everybody.
I think in general, it's actually put out to everyone, and I'll say what I think after that. Does anybody have any response to Troy's question, or why you think on average 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck? What could be the possible reason?
Well, one reason may be living above means.
Mm-hmm. And that's the exact reason I would have thought, is you're living above your
Or
means.
there could be an emergency situation like medical debt, some catastrophic death.
Yeah. And I think that emergency situation, catastrophic stuff is probably probably the 10, maybe 20% of those people. So at least 50% of people who are probably just living above their means Um, but oh, yeah, I agree with you, Jamie. I think it's one of those two things. Sorry, guys, I just got a cough that's really annoying. Won't go away. Yeah. What do you think, Troy? You think around the same thing?
I'm thinking maybe folks don't think it's necessary. Like they don't prioritize it. They don't make it as an important priority.
Yeah.
Because you have an emergency fund, you're giving up something else that you can use that money for.
Yeah.
Right? And whatever you're giving it up for, you view that as a higher priority than having an emergency fund.
Mhm. I think the perspective nowadays too is about like I don't want to go back and be corny and say YOLO, like the you only live once thing. But honestly, I think that's the perspective. You know, people are really trying to focus more on enjoying life, not so much thinking about any possible situation that can happen. People are more present day focused versus future focused, which is good. But it's also bad because you don't think about these potential negative things that could happen, you know? And or you're in a situation where everything is always feeling negative, so you always try to obtain some type of enjoyment by constantly spending on things you enjoy without preparing for any like other negative things that can happen. That's what I would say. And we went through a couple throughout this whole thing. We went through numerous verses on it's focusing in Proverbs to kind of support the arguments, support the perspectives that we're trying to go through and try to obviously take this from a biblically sound financial plan. A couple of questions. So what makes it so difficult to get out of debt? What do you guys think makes it so difficult to get out of debt? Or I guess before we start questions, anybody have, this is a quick review of what we went over on Sunday. So does anybody have any questions related to anything that we just ran over really quickly? Anything you want to go into more deeply? If not, then we'll start the questions.
You know, Raymond,
Yeah.
I know I told Christy that on putting stuff away, emergency fund.
Mhm.
Well, it's just been 3 years since I realized what Donna does. When she gets her money the beginning of the month,
Uh-huh.
she has all these envelopes that she has for different things she's saving up for.
Mhm.
Like, you know, vacation she saves up for ahead of time. She's saving if we move, she wants to get different kind of furniture. And she
Yeah.
has all these envelopes marked for that. And she does not touch them no matter what. So I thought maybe I should learn from her too.
That's a good system because I know a number of financial teachings, financial plan methods, even in the financial piece, they talk about doing an envelope system where you divide your money up so that you can be more wise and more purposeful on how you spend so that you're not being spendthrift and spending above what you need to, so that you're making sure that everything has its place, so everything needs to get taken care of is getting taken care of. And then you have your little money on the side for enjoyment type funds.
Yeah.
But Mamo, why do you think it's so difficult for people to get out of debt?
I don't know. Well, some people they just want to spend. I mean, they want this and they want that and they don't care. I mean, they just spend it while they have it.
Jay, what do you think? Why do you think people sometimes, like based on your friends or people you know, why is it so difficult, you think, people to get out of debt?
I think because they live for today, not for tomorrow.
Yeah. I think that's a huge reason. They live for today, not for tomorrow. I think that's a huge reason. honestly, I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons that people just live for today, not for tomorrow, not being concerned of what happens next. You know, obviously we don't know if we have a tomorrow, so we live for today, but we still got a hope that we have a tomorrow and plan for that. You know, we live for both. Exactly.
I think another area is, changing your lifestyle to focus on paying off debt.
Mhm.
So a
You
lot,
think
a lot of times you just want to continue doing what you're doing and somehow miraculously pay off debt
Mhm.
without making any changes.
Yeah. Just like kind of like breaking old habits.
Mhm.
Yeah. Forming new ones. Because if you get in a routine of how you do things, like I do the same routine every morning, and so if people do the same routine every morning in regard or every week where they go, they get their check. As soon as they get their check, they go out to this place and buy, I don't know, a pair of sneakers, and then make sure that they go out or make sure they do something, like, and then do it on a routine. It's gonna be hard for them to get out of that routine. It's gonna make them feel uncomfortable to be out of that routine, and now they're gonna still continue spending and doing things the same exact way, hoping for different results.
I was gonna say, well, not being just like how y'all said it, not being properly taught or educated on how to get out of debt or budget or save money can also reflect on how they live, because it's a survival thing. They only know how to survive. So any money come in hand, they have to survive to get to the next level. So whether it's for food or whether it's for their kids or whether it's for transportation, they only know about survival. And that's all they're gonna have on their mind the whole time is surviving. I just know how to I would taught myself to survive. So that's the best way to get it. I ain't gonna never get out of debt because I gotta survive, and then another problem might come or another bill might come or something like that. So it's like you never getting out of debt because you never was taught the proper way or educated the proper way of how to budget or how to you know,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. So basically, just not being taught the skills or the tools you need to kind of change that mindset to get out of debt or to develop a new mindset. So not being taught.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Guys.
Right.
Well, it's not something that's taught in our schools. Financial literacy is not taught, all the way up from kindergarten up through middle school, through high school, into college. They don't teach finance, how you handle your finances. We're just taught to try and get an education, try to get a good job. And we're told maybe to save our money, but we're not told that, hey, our savings doesn't keep up with the rate of inflation. So the average person is always falling behind.
Yep. Yep.
I think also what you all are saying is, bad habits and bad behaviors at like the top of the list.
Yep.
One suggestion is don't let your money hit your hands. As soon as the money hits your hands, you're bound to spend it.
So you're talking about like automatic, like you mean like things like automatic withdrawal, like automatic like savings or automatic things that go into, yeah.
That's why people are not as effective with the envelope system. It's great if you're disciplined enough.
Mhm.
Most people aren't disciplined enough to do the envelope system because as soon as that money hits their hands, it ain't going in the envelope. It might go in the envelope for half a second and then you're going to take it out and do something else with it.
Yep. Or they shuffle it around. Like,
They're going to shuffle it around. It's going to end up somewhere it's not supposed to be.
Yeah. I know that's actually in a podcast I'm listening to. That's one of the things that they say is to do automatic withdrawal. So instead of putting money into your envelope, or instead of doing things like that, automatically have it so that every time at the same time, or every time you on that same day that you get your check, it automatically takes money out and puts it into your savings account. And then and also same thing with credit cards, automatically takes out and puts it towards credit card or your 529 or whatever. And then another person said one way to help get out of debt is, or to save so you can get out of debt, is to have two separate bank accounts at different banks and have one that you actually use and then one that automatically gets withdrawn, like that automatic withdrawal out, because if you don't see it ever and you can't reach it in your normal bank account, then you won't even look at it. And then So, so kind of
Great
tricking your
point.
brain, tricking your brain. All right. Next question is, what are the benefits of living debt free? I know there's plenty of benefits. I see plenty of benefits.
You have more cash available.
So you have more cash available, and what does that lead to then?
You have more spending options.
You have more spending options, which then ultimately leads to more freedom, in
Freedom.
regards to being debt free. Now you're no longer a slave to the lender, you have more freedom in how you work, you have more freedom in how you travel, you have more freedom in how you eat, because like say like Dave Ramsey says, would it be nice one day that you're debt free and your boss like, oh well, I don't think you're doing well, or I don't like how you act like this, and you just be like, okay, bye, because you don't have to, man. You're free. You don't have to work simply to pay off whatever bill that's been holding you back for so long. Not saying that you should be doing that and like leaving a job for silly things, but you should have freedom to do it.
You can work how you want to work, where you want to work.
How much you want to work. Yep. That's truth. That's what I'm looking forward to. Control. I'm looking forward to that. All right. And we said, what are some examples of wise and foolish debt? This will be the last one. I was going to skip this question, but I think actually might be a good question. So what are the examples of wise and foolish debt? Because this is kind of like the whole kind of, I feel like concept of good versus bad debt. And then we'll move on to the next topic. I know some people say that wise debt is educational debt. I would honestly, I've been in school forever, and I don't think educational debt is wise debt. I think it's wise debt if you can reduce the amount of debt you have from educational debt. So I think when I say that, I mean like you should probably, before you choose debt or take out a loan like most kids do, you go and you look for scholarships, you look for grants, you look for other options, or get a job and work to pay off college instead of taking on the debt, because educational debt is not really wise debt, because you see that's kids getting taken advantage of, because you're 18 and maybe you don't come up with money, and it's hard to try to think of how you're going to pay for this. So the easiest thing is to take a loan. They throw that money in your face, and that's the easiest thing. Say, do your FAFSA. We'll give you this amount of loan if you fill out your FAFSA. Why would you not take that? Not realizing that at the end of the day, you're gonna owe $300,000 like me, crying every day, hoping I can get this thing done with. So I think educational debt is wise in a sense if you get a career that's gonna get a good return on your investment. But even that, there's other options. I think maybe the only wise debt in America would probably be a house debt. That's what I think. Sometimes you can't really afford to pay X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a house. So I think that might be the only wise debt that I could think of.
Also, wise debt could be debt used to buy an asset that can earn you income. So like a real estate, property. You might go into debt to buy a piece of property, but then you're earning rental income, and over time it pays itself off. And that's a form of passive income that you can earn. So it's not a complete liability. So anything that's a liability, like debt on, like consumer items, cars and clothes, and things, jewelry.
Things that have no value.
Yeah, they don't have any value. They don't bring in any income.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're paying all that interest on things that don't bring you any income.
Yeah. That's just silliness. It's things that depreciate instead of appreciate. All right. This is a quick thing about the dumb things we do and how Proverbs kind of warns us against these things. So Proverbs 12:9, better to be a nobody and yet have a servant than pretend to be somebody and have no food. This right here is like those people who ball when they ain't supposed to be balling. Like 50 Cent, I'm reading 50 Cent's book. 50 Cent says, well, one of the things you should do is always act like you've already made it, dress like you've already made it, drive like you've already made it, like what, bro? Like if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you should not be riding in a Maserati. Don't do it. I mean, that's silliness. It's dumb. And I understand that he talks about the changing your mindset, but bro, the only way you change your mindset is actually do it. So don't be silly and act like you made it when you're still working on it like all the rest of us, be wise about it. And then when you make it, then go do it. But till then, don't do that. Proverbs 12:11, those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense. That's most of the people that I know, and that's honestly me a lot of the time, is to be dreaming all the time, daydreaming all the time about what you can and can't do, or daydreaming all the time about all the awesome things that you're about to do. I'm about to start this business right now. And actually, I was talking to Chrissy about this today. We're about to start this business right now, and I'm going to be a millionaire by next week. That's silliness, you know what I mean? Because you're just dreaming. If you're not putting the work behind it to actually make it happen, then it's just a dream. And all you're going to do is continue dreaming and fantasizing about all these things. That's honestly a lot of people in my family too. This Proverbs 12:27 goes along with that as well. The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt. So put in the work, don't be lazy. Don't sit around, put in the work, because if you put in work, you will always get results. And these are common things that we hear all the time. And it's being backed up in the Bible that this must be true. And then Proverbs 13:7-8, one person pretends to be rich, yet has nothing. Another pretends to be poor, yet has great riches. A person's riches may ransom their life, but the poor cannot respond to threatening rebukes. That reminds me of the first one. All right, let's move on so we can actually get some stuff to talk about. So charity. This goes in with pillar number 3, or pillar number 4, which is giving. For most households, giving tends to be an afterthought. If you have a little extra at the end of the month or at the end of your paycheck, then you try to be generous and give to some charity or help someone that that needs help. But more times than not, most of us don't even feel like we have enough at the end of the month or at the end of the paycheck after we've paid everything. A lot of times because our lifestyle tends to chase our check, so then we spend to our lifestyle. We feel as if we don't have enough extra, when in reality, most of the time we actually do have enough. So instead of giving to others, though, we take our extra and splurge on ourselves, which there's nothing wrong with splurging on yourself because you work hard for what you have. You work hard, you should be able to appreciate the fruits of your labor. So it's nothing wrong with spending some things on things you enjoy. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But ultimately, we do have to keep in perspective, though, that the laws of the kingdom or the hierarchy of the kingdom is what? What is the 3 hierarchy of the role in the pyramid of the kingdom? What's first, what's second, and what's of third importance? And we've talked about this a number of times, if you guys remember.
God, others, and then yourself last.
Exactly. So God, others, and then yourself. So if we keep that hierarchy in perspective, we'll know that, hey, we definitely need to be mindful of ourselves, but we still, more important than ourselves is God first and then other people. So charity and giving focuses on God and other people, and focuses on God through other people, because by giving to other people, we honor God. One parable that came up as I was preparing this was in Luke 12, 13-21. And this is the parable of the rich fool. Can anyone read that real quick? Luke 12:13-21. I probably should ask someone to find it earlier. Luke 12:13-21. We actually mentioned this on Sunday too. Someone mentioned this parable. I think it might have been you, Troy, who mentioned this parable. Maybe it was Dorothy. Does anybody have it?
What was it again, Ray?
Luke 12, verse 13-21.
Okay. It said, then someone called from the crowd, teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me. Jesus replied, friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things?
Melissa, you're going in and out. You sound
Am
far.
I?
Yeah,
I know, that's why I didn't say too much. Sorry.
No
Let me
problem.
see if this is better. Then he said, beware, guard against every kind greed. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you.
That's better.
Mhm.
Life is not measured by how much you own. Then he told them a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Then he said, I know, I'll tear down my barn and build bigger ones. Then I'll have enough to store all my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, you will die in this very night. Then you will get everything you work for. Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No. Thank you so much for reading. So guys, what's the story telling? What's this parable telling us?
Yeah, I remember. This is the one I brought up on Sunday. It's talking about the heart of this rich man. He wanted to store up more. And the reason he wanted to store up more is because he wanted to store up for himself.
Mm-hmm.
So his focus was have more for himself. It really doesn't mention anything about him giving to others or thinking about other people.
No.
I could give a different perspective that the true riches is the relationship with God versus the earth, the things that we obtain earthly.
Thank you. Yeah, those are both really good and both definitely correct. Like you guys were saying, true riches don't rely on what you can do for yourself. So this guy thought that everything had all this harvest that he produced. He felt that first off that it was him who made this harvest, that he put in the work and he got what he deserved because he worked hard for it, and totally forgetting that in an agricultural society, which he should have known, that what you actually put in your work is not even the primary factor. What primary is like external effects, like what's the weather like? Is there enough sunshine? Is there enough water? Things that God produces. And then after he thought that, he's like, I'm going to stir this up for myself. And God, like on a total outside perspective, nowadays we'd congratulate someone for doing that. I'd be like, oh man, this guy has all these riches and he's being wise, he's saving it, doing all these awesome things with all this money that he has, and he's just not being spent with. And that's not what this story is saying, because that is totally incorrect. Because like you guys said, this guy's storing up for himself, not realizing that it's not for him. God calls him at the end of the day and says, all these riches that you have, you're not even able to spend it because today your life is going to be asked of you. And so what God did in showing that is that this guy was a fool. But the guy was a fool because he was being rich. He was called a fool because he didn't know that the riches that he had was not for him. It was for everyone else. He wasn't called store those riches up for himself. God didn't give him that wealth for him to store for himself. He gave it to him to shed that extra out to all those in need. And that's really what it is. Hence why, it's so important for us to be charitable in what we have, because just like we've been saying, this is first and foremost an issue of the heart. So what you store in your heart, what you choose to do with your extra is an indication of what controls your heart. So since it's an issue of a heart, and the biggest issue between our heart and God is basically our money and our possessions, we always have to choose to be realistic and understand that our riches are not for ourselves, therefore to do God's work and to advance his kingdom. So we got to ask ourselves, a lot of struggles, we struggle with the earnings that we have and actually being charitable, and our heart is lying to us. And so so we have to kind of realize, like, where's our heart lying? Like, where is our heart not just lying, like telling us what to do and what not to do, but in the sense of lying, like, where does our heart lie? Is it with God or is it with our flesh? And we need to understand that if you live an abundant life, it's for you to be rich towards God and to help other people. And so we need to ask ourselves, what does it mean to actually be rich towards God, which is seen in Luke 12. We go farther on in this section, verse 31 to 34, and it says, instead seek his kingdom, and these things will be added unto you. And we talked about that. We talked about first and foremost seeking the kingdom of God, and everything else that we have or that we desire will be added unto us. And it says, fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourself with a money bag that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So we ask ourselves, where is our treasure? Is our treasure with these fleshly, earthly things, or is it with God? Because we don't get to take anything that we have with us after we die. But if we store up treasures in heaven, we'll have abundant treasure for eternity. Hence, don't be stingy. Good. All right. Let's go to this little video I found on YouTube, which I thought was a nice, cute little thing.
Investing in the stock market can be overwhelming, even mysterious to many people. But Gene Reeling, retired for 20 years and debt-free, seems to have figured it out.
There are certain rules that apply to investing. If you follow those, it just works.
But Gene says there's another reason her investments have been so successful.
I give God the credit because I have been giving and receiving, and it's just a matter of reciprocity.
It's a principle she learned growing up on her parents' farm.
I saw that you plant a seed and you have a harvest and you reap it, and then you plant another seed. I learned then by planting seeds of money that you could receive benefits.
Gene saw that principle at work in her job, her finances, and investments. But for her, it's about more than making money.
I'm on this earth to give to God's kingdom and encourage others to do it also.
One of her favorite places to give is CBN.
Wherever there's a tragedy, there's a need, and 700 Club is there. The one more recently that I've been hearing about is Orphans Promise and how they help children around the world. I want to encourage anyone to be faithful to the Lord, to the work that He's doing, and He will give you promptings of when you are to give, and obey those promptings because it works.
I think one key thing that I got from that video, and it kind of reminds me of what the Bible says, is that God is faithful, God is true, and God has plenty of things he says about those who give. Like she said, it's reciprocity. He specifically says, if you do this, then you will get this. And these are things that now we got to hold our faith true to understand that God is a God that does not lie, and that what he says, he will deliver on. So a number of verses, actually, these are verses on giving, but this one, a couple of these verses actually were really more impactful in regards to God following up on those who give. So Psalms 41 verse 1, it says, "Blessed is the one who considers the poor. In the day of trouble, the Lord delivers him." I think that's powerful, because God is saying, like, yo, if you consider those who are troubled, who are in some type of financial strain, or like, being poor is not an easy life. It's troubling life. And so those who help those in need, well, God will also look out for you. And does any of these verses stick out to anybody?
19:17 does for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's always, to me, it's always rewarding to give.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes even if you feel like you don't have, but you give to something, I don't know, it just makes you feel good.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's a greater treasure than just like receiving a physical treasure. This is an internal, like a joy, and the Lord provides joy, and through our giving, we receive joy.
Yeah.
And I like Proverbs 28:27. Those who give to the poor will lack nothing, but those who close their eyes to them receive many curses. This is like, it's telling you, like, yo, you give to the poor. He's specifically saying, you give to the poor, there'll be nothing that you don't have. But to close your eyes, man, you're gonna get yourself into some trouble. Honestly, that's one of the verses that kind of scares me a little bit when I see, like, it's like I don't want to see someone in need and not help, especially like when you walk down the street and you see people holding the signs or whatnot. And I'm bad if I don't give, because I'm like, this, it kind of reminds me of this. Like, if I close my eyes to them, or closing my eyes to God, when Jesus says, those who help the least of these have helped me. I'm like, man, I don't want to be someone who turn my eyes to Jesus when Jesus, like, hey, do
Ray,
something good.
I can help you
Yes.
a little with that, because I used to feel like that. My youngest son taught me. You go to the dollar store, you get some water, sock, crackers, Ziploc bags. You ride around those with your car when you see them. You handed that. You could put $5 in there if you want. You put whatever you. That helps a whole lot, because
Sure.
I felt I did. But it becomes overwhelming, and God gives us wisdom. That can help you, though, because it kind of helped me a little bit. So that's just something to share with you.
Yeah, and that we
I
always have
call
something
them
to give.
drive-by prayers, or drive-by, something.
That's good. That's good. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, Melissa, I really like that one too. That's one that I like to do. Also, like, have things in your car, because I was also feeling the same way. Like, okay, I know I'm giving from my heart. What you do with this, or if it's a scam or anything like that, because I had people in the car with me say, don't do that, don't give them anything. But for me, it was coming from the heart, and I thought of the same thing as if
well, that's Jesus, and I'm going to walk away and not give him anything. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm looking at people in that manner. And then what I also started doing, carrying tents in my car.
Oh yeah.
And I would give tents and things like that. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. And those are things that people need. And honestly, those are more beneficial than giving money. Like giving things like those little packs and giving socks. When there was a survey that showed that the most thing that homeless people really request for is socks. So, and having a tent provides them a place to stay, and that's more important than giving someone a couple dollars, you know. So I think those are really good ideas, and it kind of also helps for the scammers like doing the scams. So those are good ideas. That's wisdom with giving. That's wisdom in giving. That's good. That's really good. So what prevents us from sharing what we have with others?
Fear of not having.
So not having fear, not having enough for yourself, kind of.
Yeah, I think that prevents people from giving or from. Yeah, I just think that.
Yeah. As I'm thinking about this too, I just wanted to add a little caveat that is like we always think about giving, like giving money or giving like items. One of the most important things we can give is our time. Maybe we don't have the money, you know, to give, but we can give our time. We can give a hand. You know, we can help someone move some stuff. We can do so much other things that we can do to give more than just physical like possessions and money. So I just wanted to just add that into there because I know those are important. Those are things that I constantly forget. Like giving my time is more valuable than giving money. Teaching somebody something is way more valuable than giving them money. So those are all good things. Because even if we don't have the money to give, we can still give. But yeah, I agree with you, Becky, that that fear of not having enough, putting ourselves in a strain. But then that goes into the Bible kind of God tells us about, because I think that was one of the verses we just talked about. One person who gives freely is Proverbs 11:24-25. One person who gives freely yet gains even more. So that's explaining that we give freely even when we don't think we have, or we are scared of not having enough. You give freely and God will always provide. He'll give you even more than what you have. And I feel like a lot of us have probably seen that happen in life. I know that we've seen that happen in life because growing up, you know, my mom would always help people and give a lot. And we are not rich. Like growing up, we struggled a lot, but God always provided. So, and my mom still always gave. So I definitely saw that in action growing up about giving freely, and God will give you even more. That's the test of our trust. So what was someone else about to say something? Because I felt like I cut someone off.
I was just going to say the old saying, you give a man a fish, he eat for a day. You teach him how to fish, he can feed himself. But you mentioned the point of teaching someone is better than just giving to them.
For sure. I think is always better than giving. Because if you can teach them, like you said, you give a man a fish, eat for a day, you teach him how to fish, he eat for the rest of his life. So it's better to teach someone how to fish than to give them a fish. You're not helping, truly, you're not helping them. You help them for the situation of that moment. And some people maybe just need that moment to get by, you know? But in general, like you give them something that they can use valuable for life. That's life changing. So when have you been able to meet someone else's needs? How did that feel?
Feels good. It feels rewarding, even though you didn't get, you know, they say if you sow, you reap. But when you give, you feel good, even though you haven't received anything. Mm-hmm. You know?
Mm-hmm. I definitely know that. I think everyone can say that. It feels good. It feels good. It feels good to be able to give. and help someone, even if you're not really gonna experience another like receive something physical back. You know, that joy that you get is it's a lot better to know that you did something positive for someone to help somebody. So what steps can you take to consistently practice generosity with your finances? I think one thing that we can do, instead of like putting our giving to the last after we have already paid everything, or after we you know see what we have excess, I think we should give before that. You know, it doesn't have to be much, you know, but you give like, you know, you set like $5-10 aside to get someone a gift card and give it to them on the road. You know, give someone that has a sign up on the road, you know, $5-10 in gift card. Plan giving ahead and not as an afterthought. I think that's one way that we can practice more generosity with our finances, by putting it first, because I feel like by putting it, we're putting God first. I think, yeah, that's what I think.
You know, like when you put it into your budget, that would be good. I've always been a spender. Luckily, my husband has been a saver. So it's just been more recently that I've gotten more on track. So it took me a long time to get to this point. But if you put it in and make it part of your budget and part of that, I think that helps.
Mm-hmm. And I think by putting as part of your budget, you're gonna automatically learn how to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like it's like when you have your 401k and you want to put X amount in your 401k. You start off by putting 5%. You're like, okay, that's all I can give. If you put another 2% to make 7% or make 9% or max it out at 15%, you'll learn how to deal with that other money that you have after that. So you'll lose that money, but you'll adjust your life to be able to account for that loss. So same thing with giving, you know, adjust it. Automatically put that in there. Then now you have that as planned aside, and it's not gonna hurt you because you know how to work around that. All right. So that old lady in that video was talking about how she, you know, she got out of you know, just is a cheerful giver, and she does it through investing. So we're going to talk about investing. But for our investing, we're not going to talk about any steps or anything like that. We're going to talk biblical like principles, or specifically what it says in Proverbs and other Bible verses about investing. Because investing is very, very broad. I talk to Troy all the time. There's so many ways of investing in regards to real estate, stocks, finance, currencies, and precious metals, and all that stuff. There's so many things that you can invest in. So we're going to talk about the tips for investing, and from that you can determine what type of investments you want to go forward towards. One clear fact, I think, is that you can't grow money unless you invest money. Letting your money sit is probably not a wise thing, to just keep storing money up in savings without doing anything with that, because you're going to lose, because depreciation is already at 3-4%. So your value of your dollar goes down like every year. So you can't just let it sit. You have to do something with it. It's not like the old days. You can just collect it. And so verses. Anybody want to read some of these verses? Start reading. And then I want you to just read it and kind of explain what you think it means to you, to this lens of investing. In addition to that, if anybody has any questions about investing that we can hopefully answer biblically, please, feel free to ask those questions.
An inheritance claimed too soon will not be blessed at the end.
So what do you think that means?
That being greedy, see, to me, an inheritance claim too soon. I don't know exactly what the meaning is behind that.
Could it be the prodigal son?
There we go.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, that's a good example, actually.
Yeah. Quickly taking up your inheritance and wasting it quickly, you know, not be blessed at the end. So who wants to read the next one? Proverbs 21:25. Proverbs 21:25. I don't know why you guys whispering like they can't hear you. They see you right here.
Is it open?
Yeah.
No. Okay. The plans of the diligent led to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty.
All right. So the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. So this kind of, I feel like this one goes in line with Proverbs 20 a little bit in regards to, and actually going with working. So in regards to investing, investing is a practice of diligence. It's not a practice of, of quick money getting, and then thinking you're about to be rich. You know what I mean? Because in investing, it's a lot of learning required in investing, requiring you to be diligent in your learning and to learn from those mistakes that you make throughout it all. But so if you take the time to actually learn how to invest, learn what to invest in, listen to gurus and people who are really good at investing, kind of learn from their mistakes so that you don't make mistakes, and you don't rush to being, but be smart about your investing, then it'll lead to profit. But if you start to rush, and now when you start to rush, you start making silly mistakes, and now investing no longer is really investing for you. It's more like gambling, because you're just taking, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to make money because everyone else is jumping into cryptocurrency. So I'm going to put $1,000 in the cryptocurrency and I'm going to get rich like everyone else does. Now you didn't learn, you weren't diligent in your studies. Now you're sorry because now the market just dropped on that cryptocurrency that you thought was going to do so good just because you decided to invest in Dogecoin, and Elon Musk said something now, and now the value of Dogecoin went down and you lost money. So I think that's what it goes into. I think that also goes into a proverb that's not on this. It's Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gains little by little will increase it. So this goes with, with savings, but it also goes with compounded interest. I think one of the concepts of investing is the value of compounding. So compounding, you guys know what compounding is. Like the easiest way, most common way that people understand compounding is through debt. So when you have a credit card, you don't pay your credit card, they charge you an interest on that. Now, so instead of you owed $100 in debt, now you owe $118 of debt because you didn't pay that month. And then the next month you don't pay again, they don't charge you on that original $100, they charge you on the $118. So instead of owing $136, you owe something like $143. And it keeps compounding on top of that debt that you keep making. So that's this with investing, but in reverse for compounding. So when you have your wealth, you put it in say something like a index fund or something like that. Or let's say treasury bond, a US treasury bond. So that's why the rest is a lot, because there's a lot of vehicles to invest in. So say you put in a US treasury bond that says you're going to get 2% interest or 3% interest on it. Now, That's actually a bad example. Let's say you have a index fund that follows the market and you get 9% interest on average. Now, if you hold that, say if it's consistently 9% interest on average, every year you'll slowly that $100 that you put in will constantly every month obtain more interest until eventually you hit $1 million. So that's what I think that verse means. Let me know if I'm saying like too many investing terms that people will have questions on, or if you guys understand what I'm trying to say. I don't want to ramble.
I think the point you made is good for the next one. Proverbs 24, 3 and 4. Am I still far away?
No, you're good. You're
Okay.
perfect.
By wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge, its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. And I think the analogy that you just used was perfect, because eventually you buy something and you take your time to let it grow and add to it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I agree. I think that's a good understanding of that one. The last one here is Proverbs 27, 23 to 24. Be sure you know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds, for riches do not endure forever. A crown is not secure for all generations.
Me, that almost says know when to get out.
That honestly is honestly part of it, knowing when to get out. Be sure that you're paying attention to how, because back in the day, flocks was like our money. You know, you're rich based on your flocks. So be aware of how your money is being spent, how your money is being moved. Look at your 401k, which I need to actually do, because yeah, I'm lazy on that. This is honestly one of the things I'm bad at, is being constant on looking, not being constant, but you want to have an understanding of what is exactly going on with the money that you put in, that you're investing. You want to pay attention to what's going on with these swings, because you don't want to be in the position where now paying attention, and now you lost all your money because you didn't pull out, just like you said, Becky. You didn't get your money out when you needed to, and then reinvest into something else. So I agree. All right. Any questions on investing, on biblical investing? I feel like these are just verses to kind of support investing from the Bible. It doesn't necessarily talk about specifically about investing, because investing, like it doesn't talk about specific types of investing, because obviously that's our wisdom that we have to utilize in how we actually invest. But investing is a good thing. That's how wealth is built, through investing. Now, how you invest is up to you. Be diligent in understanding your investment. Be diligent in making sure that you're monitoring stuff, because you don't want to be caught and you don't want to do silly things. You don't want to be a gambler. You want to be an investor. Gambling is taking a chance, playing the lottery. And there's plenty of Bible verses that say don't play the lottery. You don't want to take those silly chances you don't really have control. Investing is a skill that requires developing specific skills, and requires you to study and to look into it and to go into it and actually focus on it and be diligent, just like these Bible verses are saying. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about investing, feel free to ask me on the side, and I'll try to help you the best I can. Things to avoid, and obviously one thing that we need to avoid is loving money, because riches do not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. And another one talks about what does the other one talk about? That's a good one. So Ecclesiastes 5:10-12 says, "He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity." What do you guys think that means? I think that's like, what do you guys think that means? Let's see who's on here. Byron, what do you think that verse means on Ecclesiastes 5:10-12? What do you think that means? Hmm? Hmm? No. All right. Anyone have any thoughts? All right. I think
they'll be fearful. I mean, it's whatever, they're not going to be it's a lack of satisfaction with their circumstances. Yep. Whereas the laborer says, I worked hard. I've earned what I have. Mm-hmm. I can sleep soundly knowing that I've done my best. Mm-hmm. Where, of my understanding or my interpretation.
I 100%, Jamie, because just like you said, it's the lack of satisfaction, it's discontentment. So, and this verse in Ecclesiastes really focuses on where your heart is, because if your heart is towards this money, you'll never be satisfied. You know what I mean? Because if your heart is towards possessions, you'll never have enough. You know, because you always want the newest, latest thing. You have a computer that you love. I need this computer. I need this. If I have this, then I'll be able to do so many great things. Till that computer has an upgrade, now all of a sudden you need that next one. You know, you'll never be satisfied. But if your heart is with the Lord, you'll find satisfaction. You'll never be satisfied with riches in the world. There's always more riches to obtain. You'll never not want more. But if you have the Lord, then you'll understand when to be content. So fast money gained unrighteously. So obviously this one's saying, he that hastes to be rich hath an evil eye, and considereth not the poverty shall come upon him. So you rushing to be rich, you're gonna be willing to do some shady stuff, not considering of the negative effects that can happen with that. You know, think of something like, you know, Enron or being a drug dealer. It's a risky life. You know, you get quick money, but your life expectancy isn't very high. So stuff like that. Another good thing is to leave an inheritance, obviously, for your children's children. It says Proverbs 13:21-22. Trouble pursues the sinner, but the righteous are rewarded with good things. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. What else? And finally, it's all about your heart. You want to be content because everything you have is from the Lord. If your heart is good and your heart is towards the Lord, honestly, everything else works out. And when your heart is not towards the Lord, everything else, you find a lot of trouble and a lot of things because your heart isn't in the right place. And honestly, that's the most important thing of this whole financial teaching is really to understand where your heart is. If your heart is with the Lord, you'll be content, you'll be satisfied, and God will provide for you. But if your heart is towards other things, you'll never be satisfied. You'll always be chasing that's something else, and you probably don't even know what that something else is, but you'll constantly be chasing it. So if your heart is in the right place, everything else works out. And that's the key concept of biblical finances, is that if you follow the Lord, everything works out. That's it. That's what I think. Does anybody have any other thoughts? Anything they want to add? Any questions? Any final comments, like Jerry Springer says?
I think the part about it being a heart, it is really really big.
Mhm.
Because everything kind of goes from the heart.
Mhm.
So
Because like honestly, what drives your motivations? What drives your actions? You know, what drives your motivation? What drives your actions is gonna be very important to what your end result will be. So if your heart is right, you know, your decisions will be right, and then that will lead to good actions. Even if things may not start start in the right way. Like you think about the story of Joseph, you know. It was a growing process for him. His heart gets right though, and everything works out. God had a plan from the beginning. So no matter what's going on in our lives, if our heart is right towards God, God has a plan. Everything works out. Seek Him first in His kingdom, and everything else will be added unto you. That's what we really need to worry about. And with that, you know, we want to be good stewards of what God has given us. And by being good stewards, we're going to have to be smart financially. We have to make good financial decisions. We're going to have to spend our money in a way that's beneficial to not just ourselves and those immediately around us, but to a greater work of the kingdom. You know, it's as long as we do everything for God's glory and to honor God, everything else works out. Even when with God, he's not a liar, he will take care of everything. And that's all I got to say, guys.